The voice of Indiana County, WCCS AM 1160, 101.1 FM. We're going Facebook, but not Facebook Live. This time you'll be able to see the video of these fine young gentlemen in the studio with me here in just a few moments right after the conclusion of the interview. And it is, of course, a day on which, we sadly mark that Tim Harley has retired and has left the Jimmy Stewart Museum after a long and very illustrious career. And we get to learn about what happens next for the museum. Jerry Thomchick is with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Todd. How are you this morning?
Wonderful to have you with us. I'm terrific.
Thank you very much.
Terrific. And what's your name again, young man?
Harvey McElfresh.
Okay, Harvey McElfresh is here this morning, cleverly disguised as Carson Greene Jr. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Tim Harley was such a great asset, wasn't he, for so many, many years?
He really is going to be remembered for when the museum was in financial trouble. Mm-hmm. He found us benefactors from all around the country and helped put us back on a sound financial footing. Yeah. And so I think that is going to be his lasting memory over there. And he's kept such a good relationship with Judy and Kelly and the rest of the family and Rich Little. So they want to support us and keep this museum going as long as possible.
Absolutely.
And we're actually happy for Tim. Tim gave us 15 great years, and his family back in Clearfield, I think he wants to spend some more time and help them out. And it's a long drive back and forth, and it got to the point where he wants to just go off and retire. Mm-hmm. And we're so happy for him, and he did such a great job. But now it's time to look forward and see what else we can do.
Yeah.
And maybe bring some fresh ideas into the museum.
Absolutely. Carson, I know that you and Tim have had such a great relationship down through the years, despite the fact that it's you that he had to deal with. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I taught him well.
we love you, Carson, and so does the Stewart family, and the Jimmy Stewart Museum would not be where it is or what it is without Tim Harley.
Well, you're right. I remember, I think 14 years ago, or 15, not too sure, but we sat right over there in that building and interviewed Tim Harley. There were three of us, Carl Kalogi, Dr. John Butzow, and myself were the exec committee of the museum. And I remember this guy coming in with this portfolio about 4 inches thick with all these pictures, all the things that he had been involved with at another museum in New York. And we were just blown off our feet. Mm-hmm. We thought, why would someone want to come back, to a small town after working in New York? And he was involved with a lot of arts things and that sort of thing. But his father was very sick, and he lived in Clearfield. His father was very ill, and Tim thought he should come back and spend as much time as he could with his father, which he did. But I guess, Todd, if I was sort of thinking back, if you or someone else would want to manage a museum, I'm sure you'd say that would be the Jimmy Stewart Museum, because it's the best museum in the country. And also, I think you'd have to say to yourself, well, I want to be the best executive director for museums. So we've got a good combination there. We've got the best museum, and we have the best executive director, Tim Harley. So we got both. And like Jerry said, we had some rough times during those years with finances, but Tim was able to communicate with folks and express some of our problems, and he was able to actually get some extra funds. I did talk to Michael McLean last night, and Michael feels the same way. We've had an outstanding director there. Hates to see him go, of course, but as you all know, the time comes, and I'm trying to get to that point myself, where you need to step back and let someone else come in and manage. And we've got an outstanding, I don't have to say this, by the way, because I'm not on the board. I'm just
the chairman emeritus.
No, but you got, well, I'll give you $10 later. But actually, we've got one of the best boards I've ever worked with in 22 years I've been involved. Mm-hmm. And Jerry Thomchick, I don't want to embarrass him. He didn't tell me to say this, but I used to work for Jerry at the First Commonwealth Bank. He was the president. He always was so nice and kind, and he got things done. Well, he's doing the same thing here with this museum. And his assistant, the vice chairman, Tim Cronenweather, and the whole board is going to be outstanding moving forward. And this is a chance to really move forward and do some things that we want to do. Not because Tim did anything to block that. But Tim had his hands full trying to keep this museum afloat. But I think you can rest assured this museum is going to be healthy. It's going to move on in the future with new projects and programs. And I can let Jerry talk about those. But so we want to keep her going. This is number one tourist attraction in Indiana County.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure everybody knows that. This is the number one. So I think I've said enough.
All right. Well, moving forward is the theme of the day. Jerry, let's talk about the direction for the Jimmy Stewart Museum. Obviously, people's first question is going to be, well, who replaces Tim Harley? And is it going to be in the same type of role? So let's address that first.
Todd, we're going to have a board meeting on the 14th of May and talk about what direction we really want to go. But I will say one thing. If there are local candidates, I'd appreciate a resume. And if it were sent to the museum, it's 835 Philadelphia Street here in Indiana. I would appreciate looking at them as soon as possible because, I think if we could find somebody locally, I think it would be, somebody probably who's very interested in Jimmy Stewart and wants to keep the museum going. Because this is a community museum. It's really good for the county. And if we could find somebody from here. But if not, we're going to have a search committee and look nationwide and see who we can find. Whoever's coming in, I think, could bring in some fresh ideas. Anybody new that comes in, is going to have some ways to look at it that we didn't. Every time we bought a bank at First Commonwealth, they brought us some fresh ideas. And it was amazing. We always learned something from every bank that we acquired. And so I'm looking forward to having, some of those fresh ideas.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. That's by definition, isn't it? That when someone new comes in, they bring with them their fresh ideas, and that can only help.
That can only help. And, but the museum remains open. It remains strong. And, we'll continue to serve the community. We get 10,000 or so visitors every year on average. And, we have the museum store, and we've had the different dinners that we've had some very famous people come in over the years. So I'm sure we're going to continue much of that, but maybe there'll be some new things.
One of the aspects of that is that there is always in the back of somebody, it has to be in the back of everybody's mind involved with the museum. We have to do what is financially viable and is going to keep this museum not just afloat, but thriving. And those new ideas will help with that as well. But it's never going to be something that goes away. There's always going to be the need to be financially secure.
There is, and there's a legacy of Mr. Stewart. What a great actor, but what a great man. And his moral character, the duty he performed for the country in his military service, those are things we want to keep alive. And especially for the younger generation that doesn't know him as well. I think there's someone you can look up to, and say there was somebody I'd like to be like, and we don't want to lose that. We don't want to lose that, and I don't think the Stewart family wants to lose that either.
Absolutely not. Carson Greene, of course, down through the years, we have talked, you and I, about the Jimmy Stewart Museum and the fact that everybody knows Jimmy Stewart. But as Jerry just said, now we're to the point where not everybody knows Jimmy Stewart. Young adults who might not be. Jimmy Stewart was never in an Avengers movie. It's
Unfortunately, it's a
whole. Want to know the ending?
It's a whole different. Don't you say a word. A whole different cinematic world than it used to be, and there's always the danger that that memory will fade because it's harder and harder to get people to look at old movies these days, and so. I think one of the great things Tim did in the last few years was really place an emphasis on his military career and how it so intermingled with his cinematic career. But for folks to continue to have Jimmy Stewart at the top of their minds, not only here in Indiana and around Indiana County, but elsewhere, so that they would want to come to a place like the Jimmy Stewart Museum, it's really tantamount, isn't it?
Well, it's maybe trite to say it, but with the problems we have in the world today, all over the world, value systems are very important. I think the future generations are going to search for values. I think that with Jimmy Stewart's overall life, the military, the acting. He's a businessman, and I think that people will be looking for this type of hero, if you will. He never considered himself a hero. As you know, he did not want this museum, not because he didn't want a museum, but he did not feel that he needed the museum. He didn't deserve a museum. He said that. I don't need something like that.
Didn't feel worthy of it.
Right. And then, I think you have to give the board and Tim and other people have been involved. This museum is 22, almost 23 years old. Aren't many museums in this country or in the world who survive 23 years, especially in a small town. It's not like we're along some large highway, interstate. People actually come here as a destination, which is very good. It says a lot about our community. So I think we need to work closer with other organizations maybe and get more people within the Indiana region to come to the museum and visit. I'm not criticizing, but it's really a shame so many people I bump into have never been to the museum who live right downtown. That's just a fact. It's not a criticism, but every $6 or $7 that we get in the museum, that helps us finance. Now, this is not free. We have paid employees. We have all volunteer board members. So the folks listening out there, anything you can do as far as donation or come in and take a look at the museum, I think you'll find that it's a place where you would not be afraid or ashamed to take your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you, it's big help we get from Denise Liggett at the Tourist Bureau.
Yes.
Keith Rearick just joined our board from the airport, the Jimmy Stewart Airport, and they're having a big event here in a couple of weeks. So we really work with those two and many others in the area and coordinate.
Yeah. And I know if Tim were with us right now this morning on the air, one of the first things he'd say would be, hey, guess what? It's May, and the birthday celebration's coming up. So we need to point out that to folks.
May 19th.
Events such as that still go on.
Yes. May 19th all day. We'll have various things going on at the museum. So please come out and join us.
Absolutely.
I think Tim also, in my mind, received his wings. If you recall, I think he has his wings right now.
Yeah, you think so? That's a good way to put it.
I want to put 14 or 15 years in perspective, Todd. That Mark Burdick was the coach of Arone.
I knew you were going to get to this.
And I was the coach of Krebs United. And we fought it out into the state tournament. We both lost, but we both had a great time. So I think we may have beaten them one more time than they beat us.
I knew somehow it would turn to that.
Don't hold that against us, Mark. We appreciate you interviewing us.
That's all I had hair back then.
And not really. Not many people know Jimmy Stewart threw out the first pitch. No, he didn't. I needed to bring it back around, Jerry. I needed to bring it back around to
Burdick, how are
that.
you
Now
doing,
Mr.
sir?
Burdick
Good to see
comes from downstairs.
We're both in the state tournament in Homer City.
Here comes the rebuttal.
We had some battles.
Yeah, had some battles.
We
Yeah,
won most of them.
indeed.
Anybody got us.
I never got to thank you either for getting you money to buy that field down there, by the way. And Jerry was involved. This is my boss.
We don't want you guys. You want coffee, donuts?
Yeah. See, when you retire, you don't care what you say on the radio or anywhere.
No, I have to care what you say on the radio.
Oh, yes.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Jerry, timeline, we're not really looking at a solid timeline yet. As you said, the board still needs to meet.
Yeah, it still needs to meet, but like I said, if we could get somebody locally, it'll speed it up. If not, it takes time to find a person. And in the interim, we have Carson's going to help out some. I'm going to help out some. Tim Cronenwetter, and we have a good volunteer staff. So we're in good shape, but we do need a permanent replacement at some point.
Going to keep humming.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Todd.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS AM 1160 and 101.1 FM.